Hello, my name's Stuart. I'm the Unrepentant Atheist. Welcome back to my channel. And I've gone out and bought this copy of the Bible. I've got the NIV, New International Version. I thought that obviously, I'm an atheist, I'm critiquing Christians a lot. The least I should do is have a Bible, and I'm going to be doing regular readings from it. And if I find anything interesting, then obviously I'll be making video. So what I want to talk about today is the creation story, Genesis chapter 1, more or less verses 1 to 10, I think. And I'm going to read it through. And I've heard that I've heard it from other atheists that the creation story doesn't really quite get things right scientifically. And, given that some people think it's the word of God, or at least divinely inspired, uh, I wondered really whether this was a big problem. But I thought it would be best for me to read it specifically and discover for myself rather than taking somebody else's word for it. It's always best to go to the source text. And I don't know if the NIV is the best possible edition of the Bible that I could buy, but it's the only one that I could get hold of in the bookshop that I went to. It's all that they had. There was no King James version or anything. So here I am. I assume it's based on the latest scholarship, and so in that sense, it should really be the best edition. So Genesis chapter 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So this is the first thing that I looked at, and from what we know about Big Bang cosmology, um, the okay, so let's say the heavens is the whole of space. This verse gives the impression that both were created at the same time. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So it sounds like they're both created at the same time. We know that's not the case. We know that the heavens, or the universe came first, and then the solar system formed, the sun formed, and then the earth formed later. So that's not really right, but that's the first sort of mistake in the very first verse. Okay, so now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So we can imagine that the earth, when God created the earth, that the earth was actually covered in water, was actually just covered in water. And again, we know that this can't be the case. Water didn't come first on the earth. Land came first. Water came later. There are various theories about how water arrived. I don't want to go into that, and I'm no scientist, so I wouldn't really be able to describe it very well anyway. But it's irrelevant to what we're talking about here, because we're just looking at the Bible and relating it to what we know in science about how the world was formed and the universe. So, and then in verse 3 it says, God said, "Let there be light." So it looks like the heavens and the earth come together. The earth is covered in water, which we know is not true. We know the heavens and the earth didn't come together. We know that the heavens came first. And in verse 3, next, God is saying, "Let there be light." Well, we know that the universe had light in it before the earth formed. So that's wrong. We know from cosmologists that there was actually light in the universe well before the formation of the earth. I believe I've read that as early as 300,000 years after the Big Bang, there was light in the universe anyway. So that's wrong as well. So God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening and there was morning, the first day. Verse 6, and God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So we've already seen that the earth is covered in water. God is saying, let there be a vault, in other words, a space, and he's going to call that sky. Verse 7, so God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. So what's he talking about there? The water above the vault, above the sky. Well, I have done a bit of reading on this, and if you can imagine that thousands and thousands of years ago, people did not understand about precipitation and the way that water evaporates up and it comes back down as rain. And if they saw rain coming out of the sky, it's not inconceivable that they might have thought that there's some huge expanse of water above the sky. So that's just going on sort of direct observation. Obviously, it's not accurate scientifically. We know that there's no water above the sky, but they didn't know that. They assumed that because it was coming down from the sky that there was this huge expanse of water. But that makes sense in terms of what we can deduce, how they observed things. But again, it's another mistake because, if this is all divinely inspired or the Word of God, then I would expect it to be accurate. I wouldn't expect there to be mistakes. Verse 9. Yes, God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place and let dry ground appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Okay, so we've got here confirmation that in the biblical account that the earth was covered in water and land came later. We have here land coming much later, when the seas are divided by the land. So, well, as we've already said, that is also wrong. Everything's wrong here. And yet I've seen Christians claiming that the creation story is scientifically accurate. It just isn't. It's not at all. And if you're a Christian and you're saying that the creation story is accurate, then maybe you could justify it in the comments below. Because from what I can see, it's just all wrong. I mean, it makes sense in terms of, I understand that there are many creation stories. The Chinese had creation stories and many, many different civilizations had them. And actually, to be honest with you, the Chinese creation stories and some of the other creation stories I've seen are far more mythological than the account in the Old Testament. They've got various characters creating the skies, and they've got various different types of named gods and beasts and all sorts of things. Quite actually complicated stories in terms of how everything came to be. So in that kind of sense, I find the creation story in Genesis kind of sort of more reasonable, even though it makes those mistakes. I kind of quite like the simplicity of it. So yeah, I like that aspect of it, but of course there are those errors that don't really chime with divinely inspired or, of course, the Word of God. And of course, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. I just think that this was a way of explaining where the world came from, how it came to be. And if you were writing and you were reinforcing a religion, you would want to account in that religion for where everything came from. And it makes perfect sense from that point of view, but it's just basically scientifically wrong. So I'd like to stop there, and I'd like to hear your comments on that. I'm sure that some of you will have some comments about that. And I did actually enjoy going through it. Obviously, I've read it before in the past, a long, long time ago, but it's nice to come back to it, and I'm looking forward to going through the Bible, because whether you believe that God exists or not, it's a stupendous document, the Bible, all the books and everything. I'm somebody who loves old texts. I studied Old English at university. I've been to the British Library. I've seen the Lindisfarne Gospels, and I think it's phenomenal. All the illustrations and all the the way that they constructed those texts is just unbelievable, awe-inspiring, but it doesn't mean that the basis of it is actually true. But I do appreciate it, believe me. So that's all I've got to say for now, and I look forward to hearing your comments, and I'll be back fairly shortly, probably with another video. Bye-bye.